Hello once again, and welcome back to Hoosier History, Legends, and Heroes. This will be my fourth video in the series of Hoosiers awarded the Medal of Honor for their bravery, gallantry, and sacrifice on the field of battle. We know that not all who receive their medals lived through the battles that they are fighting. Sadly, there are those who are awarded their medals posthumously. In my three previous videos, two of them lived to be old men, but sadly, one of the soldiers, John Weatherby, would not live to see his 20th birthday. In this video, I will introduce you to another Indiana Civil War soldier, but this soldier would be among a group of 150 soldiers who volunteered for a suicide mission. Let me introduce you to Reuben Smalley. His father, Elias Smalley, was born in France. Elias would then come to America and he would settle in New York. Elias would marry Rosalphia Hawkins. The Smalleys would welcome Reuben into this world on April 29, 1839, in Schuyler County, New York. Reuben lost his father when he was only 3 years old, and at the age of 7, an uncle of his brought him to Jennings County, Indiana, to live with him. And at the age of 17, Reuben felt it was time that he make his own way in the world. He would marry Martha Ann Johnson in Ripley County on July 3, 1859. They would live in Ripley County until the beginning of the war. By this time, Reuben and Martha would have 2 children. I get to tell you about another Indiana Infantry regiment that I haven't mentioned before. It's the 83rd Indiana Infantry. The 83rd was organized in Lawrenceburg, Dearborn County, Indiana, September 4th through November 5th of 1862. The 83rd was under the command of Colonel Benjamin Spooner. The 83rd Indiana was involved in many battles of the war, including the Battle of Chickasaw Bayou, the Siege of Vicksburg, the Chattanooga Campaign, the Atlantic Campaign, the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain, the Siege of Atlanta, and Sherman's March to the Sea. Reuben would enlist on the 15th of August in 1862. He would be assigned to F Company, 83rd Indiana Infantry. The regiment was ordered to Memphis, Tennessee in November of 1862. Reuben would march off to war, leaving his wife Martha and their 2 small children. Vicksburg, Mississippi, which is strategically located on the Mississippi River, on the east side of the river, and in 1862-1863 is in the hands of the Confederacy. The Confederacy controlled the Mississippi between Vicksburg and south to Port Hudson. This was a lifeline for the rebels, for supplies and communication. Confederate President Jefferson Davis said that Vicksburg was the nailhead that holds the South's 2 halves together. President Lincoln would say that Vicksburg is the key. The war can never be brought to a close until that key is in our pocket. Union General Ulysses S. Grant was bound and determined to take Vicksburg for the North and for President Lincoln. In the spring of 1863, General Grant marches the Army of the Tennessee, which includes the 83rd Indiana, down the west side of the Mississippi, with Vicksburg being on the east side of the river. On the evening of April 16th, Rear Admiral Porter sneaks his Union fleet past the Confederate batteries at Vicksburg to meet up with Grant. They are spotted by the Confederates, with the rebel lookouts sounding the alarm. Each vessel of Porter's was hit by the Confederates' fire, and his fleet still fights its way past the Confederate batteries and meets up with General Grant. On April 29th, Union troops attempt to cross the Mississippi at Grand Gulf. Even though the Union fleet bombards the Confederates for 5 hours, Grant's troops are not able to cross. Grant would then make the decision to move further south along the river and finds that Bruinsburg is a much more favorable crossing point. In the early morning hours of April 30th, infantrymen of the 24th and 46th Indiana Regiments step ashore on the other side of the river in Mississippi. And I gotta say it, yay, Indiana! There is fighting between the North and the South, with Grant pushing his army towards Vicksburg. By May 14th, the state capital of Mississippi, Jackson, is now under the control of the Union Army. On May 17th, there is a clash at the Big Black River, which is also a Union victory. This forces the Confederates to fall back and enter the fortifications at Vicksburg. On the 18th, the siege begins. May 22nd is the day which will be of such significance to Private Reuben Smalley. General Grant asked for volunteers to storm the fort. This group was expected to build a bridge over a Confederate trench for the Union Army to be able to move forward. The odds of survival were bleak at best. Private Smalley was one of the 150 volunteers. After spending 10 hours trying unsuccessfully to build the bridge, the few survivors were called back. Over 85% of the 150 volunteers were killed or wounded. What was the fate of Indiana's Private Smalley? Not more than 20 came out alive, including the 83rd's Reuben Smalley. The siege continued, and Vicksburg finally surrendered to Grant on July 4th. Reuben would serve bravely for the rest of the war. One story that he tells is that he was once taken prisoner, but as he would say, no one could hold him in those days, and his captor had not taken the precaution to disarm him. Reuben would say that after marching along quietly for about 300 yards, he decided it was time to do something, and the time had come to determine whose hide was the tougher. In the struggle, Reuben's gun somehow came into contact with the rebel's head, and, well, Reuben rejoined his regiment. Reuben was mustered out on June 3, 1865, returning home to Indiana. He would be reunited with his Martha, but sadly both of his children had passed away while he was fighting the war. In 1867, Reuben and Martha would move to Decatur County. In 1894, Reuben received a letter from D.C. asking if he was part of the storming party at Vicksburg. After letting D.C. know that he was involved in the storming on May 22nd, he is then notified that he and the other soldiers who had survived the storming of the fort would be awarded the Medal of Honor. He was awarded the medal on July 9, 1894. The medal is subscribed, "The Congress to Private Reuben Smalley, Company F, 83rd Indiana, for gallantry at Vicksburg, Mississippi, May 22, 1863." This is an article published in the Muncie, Indiana newspaper, the Star Press, on May 24, 1908, and it tells of Reuben's bravery. The article tells that Reuben Smalley, who was a private in Company F, 83rd Indiana Infantry, earned his medal by his bravery at Vicksburg, Mississippi on May 22, 1863. 150 started under a terrific fire and in full view of the enemy to bridge a ditch with boards and poles. Among the 12 from the 83rd Indiana was Smalley. The color bearer was shot at the first volley, but Smalley, seizing the flag, planted it on the battlements, where it waved all day, almost mingling its folds with those of the rebel flag on the other side. A rebel's arm reaching up to pull it down was promptly shattered by a bullet fired by a little Irishman who lay alongside of Smalley in the trench. At 9 p.m., the forces were withdrawn, Rube and his flag being the last to get away under a hail of bullets. Of the entire party of 150, not more than 6 were unhurt. Throughout all his 3 years of service, though in the thickest of the fight, Smalley never got a scratch. During President Cleveland's second administration, Congress voted medals to the survivors of that assaulting party. Smalley wears his with much pride. I wanted to share with you something that I thought was quite a coincidence. I would hope that you would agree with me that the name of Reuben Smalley is not a very common name, or may have never been a common name even back in the 1800s. Well, I found a Reuben Smalley who was with the 104th Illinois. Not only do they share the same name, both were in the Civil War, and both of them were awarded the Medal of Honor, and they both earned their medals for heroism in 1863. This Reuben Smalley's medal was awarded for his bravery shown on July 2, 1863 at Elk River, Tennessee. In 1924, Lawrenceburg, Indiana celebrated with a reunion for the 83rd Indiana. This article that was published in the Journal Press on September 18, 1924, tells of how nearly 300 men left there in 1862, and now only 52 remaining, the rest having joined their comrades and are bivouacking on the plains of heaven. This article also tells that at the reunion, Comrade Smalley, who volunteered and did plant the flag on the fort at Vicksburg, was present as honored guest and gave in brief his experience, which produced a general handshaking among the old comrades and congregation present. After moving to Decatur County in 1867, Reuben was employed on railroad construction. He worked several years as a stationary engineer. He was also elected constable in 1914 and had been elected to this office several years before. It was said that he had been a shrewd businessman and successful in his life. Martha would pass away in 1921, and Reuben would pass away at the age of 87 on July 9, 1926, in Decatur County, Indiana. He is buried in South Park Cemetery, Greensburg, Decatur County, Indiana. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about Indiana's Reuben Smalley and his heroism shown at the storming of the fort at Vicksburg on May 22, 1863. And I also want to thank Gail with the Medal of Honor Historic Society for sending me an article about Reuben, which also included pictures. If you enjoy these videos, please be sure to subscribe. Also like, share, and hit the notification bell so that you will be notified when the next Hoosier History, Legends, and Heroes video is uploaded. Until next time,